Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word Live, and it's that time of year again already. Time to talk about the F1 Word driver of the season. I hope you're ready for this one. I'm flying solo tonight. Watch alongs aside, it's been a while, but I do enjoy these streams, so lots of interaction with you guys. I've got loads of tweets as well to get through over on Twitter, obviously with some of your suggestions. But basically tonight I'm going to give you 4 or 5 of my picks, if you like, some drivers that I think at least deserve a mention, if not winning the poll. And then we'll go through some of yours, and I've got some from Chainbear as well to go over, so we'll do all of that in a bit. But the key thing is, the vote is open now. The link is in the description to a straw poll. Loads of people voting already. One man is disappearing with it at the moment, so please do get in there and vote. The vote is open now until the 15th of December, I've decided, which is a Sunday. And then I'll be doing a video to count down the top 5 around Boxing Day, as I have the last 2 years. If you're interested, you may well have already seen it at the bottom of the screen. We've done this twice now. We did it in 2017 and 2018. Esteban Ocon won in 2017. No idea why, but he did. And in 2018, Charles Leclerc won after what was, let's be fair, a pretty decent debut season in Formula 1. That's a bit of an understatement. I think he was pretty special last year, to be perfectly honest. And maybe he'll get a nod this year, but I'll kick things off with a few of my picks. But good evening to everyone in chat. Good evening to Bloomy's here. Xbox Players in chat again. He's always around that guy. Russell Swan's here. Good afternoon or good evening to you. Mostly an F1 fan. B10 as well. Max Patterson. Thomas is here. Loads. So thank you very much all for tuning in. Like I say, it's just me tonight, so a bit of a waffle like we used to do on these streams before. I used to get too many guests on, but yes, vote is in the description. Make sure you drop a vote on that. Plenty of time to do it. So if you need a bit of thinking time, don't worry, good few weeks yet. I'm pretty sure you're going to disagree with me on some of these, but actually I've got a pick in here that I thought was quite controversial. But based on what I've been watching in chat while the countdown was going on and from social media, actually not as controversial as I thought. But I am going to start with the obvious one, and that is, of course, Lewis Hamilton, world champion Lewis Hamilton, 6-time. I'd never believed that. If someone had told me back in 2007 he would have won 6 world titles, I wouldn't have believed him. Not that he's not talented, I just didn't think that he'd be doing 6. But anyway, world champion has to get a mention in these sorts of things every single time. It's kind of a guarantee. But 10 wins this season, which is phenomenal. I came to do the stats thing that you can see there, and I kind of looked through Wikipedia and I was like, has he won 10? I don't remember him winning 10 races, but he has won 10. The bit that surprised me, though, was only 4 pole positions, which is probably my only criticism of him this year. And that's not really a criticism, is it? Because at the end of the day, the points are awarded on a Sunday, so 10 wins. It's all that matters, really. He's been so comfortable at the top of that championship for a long time. Massively consistent. No DNFs as well, which was, again, a bit of a surprise, despite all the chaos in Germany. And obviously ended up in the wall in Germany. Still managed to keep going. So, hugely impressive season for him. Possibly, and maybe this is a question that we'll ask in the winter break. Maybe get together and have a live stream and have a conversation then. But possibly his best World Championship title. There have been a few, haven't there? It was quite special last year as well. So maybe a debate for over the winter. But I think absolutely incredible season. But what, for me, has made it so good for Lewis is that Max Verstappen has been absolutely brilliant this year. He's had his moments. We're going to talk about him in a bit, of course. But he has been absolutely brilliant this year. That Red Bull has been so much stronger, certainly in that sort of summer period, than we were expecting this year. So they've been taking points away and fighting at the front. We've had resurgent Ferrari in the second half of the year. Leclerc this season has been really good. And the key here, Valtteri Bottas has been so much better in 2019, has been taking to the fight to his teammate, even to the point where I think he's out qualifying him this season or winning that qualifying battle. So he's had a better teammate to beat, a resurgent Ferrari to take on, and I would say above expectation Red Bull to beat. Verstappen, who's been on fire, and he's still come out as world champion. So I think he absolutely deserves a hell of a lot of credit for that. I don't know. He was second last year in the 2018 vote. I don't know if he's going to win it this year with you guys, because although I kind of hope that we're all going to vote with performance, I think some people do vote sort of a popularity thing as well, which is fine. If you've got a favourite driver, you're always going to back them, aren't you? But I don't know if he'll win this one, but he certainly deserves to be right up there. He's been so good this year. Like I say, so surprised when I went over. I'm sure it's 10 wins. I'm just going to double check. I know I wrote it on there, but it just doesn't seem right, including 4 wins, Spain, Monaco, Canada and France back-to-back, of course, during that dominant period. Some people might cringe when I say Canada. Apologies to Vettel fans, but it is his win. But it's the 4 pole positions that surprised me. I would have expected more from a guy that is probably, would we say, the best over one lap on the grid at the moment? I think if he's the best, Max Verstappen's a very close second, and Charles Leclerc's been superb this year when it comes to qualifying. But it's got to be right up there as one of the best, if not the best over one lap. So only 4 poles is a surprise. But like I say, doesn't matter. He's won the championship, 10 wins. Worst finish is 9th, which I think was following that penalty in Germany. Did he get a penalty in Germany? Sure he did. So yeah, 9th place, penalty in Germany. But if you take out the chaos, his worst finish was 7th in Brazil. And that was because of a bit of contact as well. So it's, yeah, I don't know what else to say about him, because I'll just end up sounding like a proper little fanboy. But I think he's been brilliant this year and deserves a hell of a lot of credit. Just looking at chat there, Samar says it's Sainz, Hamilton or Verstappen. I think. Well, I can promise you now, I'm going to get onto all my picks, but Sainz and Verstappen are on this list for me. But Lewis Hamilton definitely deserves a nod. Anybody not impressed in chat with what Lewis Hamilton's done this year, or do you think this has been his best season, or his best championship win, which I guess would be his best season in Formula One? Like I say, I think last year was pretty solid in winning his 5th. Understatement, of course, there, but I think it's got to be right up there as one of his best. I mean, 2008 was good, but there were so many mistakes in the early part of the year back in 2008. 2014, it was kind of a 2-horse race, wasn't it? So a couple in chat there saying, Kieran there saying, for me, 2018 was better. Last year was more impressive for Connor. So yeah, I mean, Ferrari were more in the fight last year, weren't they? It's probably the better way to put it. Ferrari came good in the second half of this season, but I can't believe we're talking about this. It's the end of the season almost. Oh my God, sorry. Anyway, they were so good. Pretty much for the first half of 2018 were okay, not great, but okay in the second half of 2018. So maybe, yeah, a bit more of a challenge from there. But I reckon it's up there. I mean, it's such a tough call. I'm going to do it in the winter, where I'm going to get Stuart and Dan and whoever on that I can, and we'll talk about Lewis Hamilton in the winter and see if we can work out which one the best one was. But I've never been that impressed with his 2008 one. I think if he'd won 2007, that would be right up there, because I think that would have been a more impressive year. But anyway, let's move on from Lewis Hamilton. I do want to talk. Do I want to do this one first? I'm going to do this one now. Sod it. Let's go for it. It's an obvious one. Dan kind of put this to me earlier. It's an obvious shout. Carlos Sainz, all I'm going to say is he's doing very well in the vote so far. That's another understatement there. But Carlos Sainz, this season, absolutely fantastic. He had a really tricky first 3 races of the season, didn't he, with those, was it 2 DNFs back-to-back? Obviously, all those flames and whatnot in Australia, and then the contact in, was it contact in Bahrain, or was it more reliability? I can't remember, but he retired from Bahrain as well. So 2 back-to-back defeats, no points in the opening 3 races, 14th, of course. In China, that was because of contact, I believe. So, but since then, massively consistent. He's been super quick. He's had the better of his rookie teammate, and I must stress this again, rookie teammate in his first Formula One season, of course, and still very young and still learning. So I don't think we can really read too much into that. But he has still beaten Norris quite well on race day, and a lot of people think Norris is up there as possible contender for driver of the season. So if he is, then Sainz is absolutely definitely up there. Podium, of course, last time out in Brazil, kind of still gutted. They didn't get to stand on there for the proper ceremony, but at least he got up there afterwards, some great photos. So podium in Brazil there to pick up the pieces. But this is one for me. 8 top 6 finishes this season in total, which, all right, okay. Red Bull have had their issues with Gasly and sort of Alban settling in as well, although he was pretty quick out the blocks, wasn't he? Was a good old Alex Alban. But yeah, the problems with Pierre Gasly and whatnot, that's probably why he's picked up some of those 6th places. But again, it's that line I always use. You've got to be there to capitalise when that little bit of luck falls your way. And that's what he's done this season. So really impressed with Carlos Sainz. I mentioned this in the watch song at the weekend, and I think I mentioned it earlier in the season. If you were watching the channel over the winter, I was quite hard on Sainz over his season last year until I came to do the season stat roundup around Christmas time and realised he'd had more top 10 finishes than any other driver in the midfield. And I really felt like I'd not battered him or anything stupid like that, but I'd really sold him short. There's no chance of that this year. Even if I wanted to, there's absolutely no way I can. He's been so good. And I know there have been moments, of course, but he's just been there so consistently. I don't think there's anybody in that midfield, and this might come across as a bit of a controversial statement to some, but I don't think there's anybody in that midfield this year that has impressed me more than Carlos Sainz. I think easily best of the rest, not just in points, but in terms of performance as well. And of course, McLaren, they've improved a lot this season versus where a lot of people, including myself, thought they were going to be in the winter. I thought they were going to be well down there, sort of 6th, 7th, maybe 8th place even. I thought they were going to struggle, but they've not. They've absolutely nailed it with the car. But the thing is, he's extracted the maximum from that car. And I've got a little thing on my notes here where I've just put settled long-term deal. I think that is so important to Carlos Sainz's story this year. I really do, because, and hear me out on this one, just bear with me a little bit on it, but his time at Toro Rosso, he was secure at Toro Rosso. He knew that for a while. He wasn't going anywhere anytime soon or anything like that. We know that. But he was never, how can I word this? He was never there really long term, was he? That's not the point of Toro Rosso. And there was always this link to the Red Bull seat. Is Sainz going to get that Red Bull seat? Is he going to partner Verstappen? Is he going to partner whoever? And that was always sort of hanging over him. Then he moved to Renault on loan, which meant that his entire 2018 was, is he staying? Is he going? Is he staying? Is he going? So he wasn't able to settle. Whereas at McLaren, he was given is it a 2-year deal? Correct me if I'm wrong, chap, but I think he was given a 2-year deal at McLaren, which has allowed him to just settle at that team, literally get his feet under the table. I think he's even moved pretty close to Woking as well, if not to Woking itself. So he's moved there. I just think that is so key, because he's not constantly concerned about his future. It's probably the shortest way to put that. He's not, thank you very much, it was 2 years in chat, thank you. But yeah, he's not constantly concerned about his future. He knows he's at McLaren next year. He knew that at the start of this year. He probably knows if he can perform anywhere near how he's performed this year, next year, he'll probably be there in 2021, if not higher up the grid. So he knows he's secure at that team. And I think that is a massive reason why he's been so good this year, and why I think a lot of people are rating him so highly this season. And again, I can only apologise to, I mean, you won't be watching, but to Sainz, telepathically or whatever, apologise to him for selling him so short over the winter, because he's been, it's my favourite word for Carlos Sainz. He's been superb. He's been absolutely superb, and I don't think many would argue against that. And on a fan level, a chilled out fan level, the relationship he's got with Lando Norris as well is brilliant. So, from a social media point of view, he's a legend as well. But on track, he's been so good this year. And I would be very surprised if he doesn't end up as driver of the season in that poll. And I'd be very surprised, certainly, if he's not in the top 2 or 3. But he's got some stiff competition in there. But I'll take a couple of comments on Carlos Sainz, actually, because I know there are a lot of you in the chat prior to the stream who were really talking him up, and rightly so. So I do want to take some of your comments on Carlos Sainz. We'll do Rookie of the Year. A couple of people asking. I'm going to mention the rookie shortly, but I will do like a Rookie of the Year probably towards the new year, just something a bit different, maybe get everyone on the stream again. The chemistry between McLaren and Sainz is so brilliant, they will probably continue for more, says Xbox Player. Absolutely, just sort of saying there, I think he's just so settled there, and it just works, doesn't it? Spicy in a severe team battle type of way. I don't know if you're having another conversation, but I like that comment. McLaren Dream Team, says Samar. He hasn't been that good, says Ben. Obviously watching last season, because he's been fantastic this year. I'd say Rookie of the Year is Russell. Like I said, we'll talk about Rookie of the Year a little bit later in the stream, but also probably do a proper Rookie of the Year towards the end. A few people with the smooth operator thing. He's good, but he's no Grosjean. Dan's not here. You don't have to kiss up to him. Driver of the Year, Lewis Hamilton. I think Leclerc has also been quite good. We'll talk about Leclerc as well. He did get well beaten by Hulk last year, unfortunately. McLaren just needed to secure his future, says Findlay. Absolutely. I think that like I say, and that's the problem. I think because he couldn't settle at Renault, he was on loan, wasn't he? He knew that he was going to be, his future was under constant speculation. Where's he going to end up? So I think that was, I don't know. I don't want to go all GCSE psychology, but it's got to have an impact on a driver if you don't know where you're going to be next season. And yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised Renault didn't snap him up, to be honest. But there you go. Boxing Day is the 26th of December for those asking. McLaren is a comfortable environment for him. His speed barrier, but also how, I don't know how long I've been watching Formula 1 speed barrier, but I've been watching since sort of 92. So McLaren hasn't always been that kind of environment, and I think Zach Brown has really, I think the new team boss, Zach Brown as well, they've just got all the structuring right there this season, and it's all worked so well. So I think it's fair to say that Lando Norris is up there as well as probably more in the rookie stakes than anything, but I think he's been extremely good as well. Sorry, Ben, I thought you were talking about Carlos Sainz. It's all right, so apologies. It's all about opinions, but yeah. I didn't think it would be about Carlos Sainz. He's been so good this year. The list, though, I've got 5 on the list. But I don't know if I want to do all 5 because I feel like I'm telling you who to vote for. But that's not what this is. This is just me waffling on a little bit. I thought a stream would be better than a video because I'll be able to interact with you guys a bit. But anyway, next up on my list, Max Verstappen. I've mentioned him a couple of times already. I think the biggest thing for me on Max has been his growth this year. I know there's been a couple of moments of over-eagerness. It depends how you see the incident in Belgium. Some would say that Max didn't need to steam up the inside into turn 1 like that and he hit Kimi. Some saying he's got every right to be there. Whichever way you see it, there have been a couple of moments this year. Obviously, he didn't cover himself in glory in Mexico after qualifying with his comments in the press. But versus where he was 12 months ago, I think he's come on leaps and bounds. And that is the one thing I've always said since I've had this channel has been holding Max Verstappen back is just that maturity. Just needs to grow a little bit. And that's exactly what he's done this year. But how good was that start to the season? Can you remember in the winter, we talked throughout testing about how we didn't expect Honda to do, not badly, we didn't think they were going to do badly, but we didn't think they were going to be all that good. We were talking quite a lot about that in the winter testing streams. And he came out absolutely all guns blazing. I think top 5 all the way up to Hungary. So for the first half of the season, every single race, he had podium in Australia. In Honda's first podium, of course, it's a return to F1. A run of 4th places. A couple of wins as well in that first half of the season. It looked as though, because I was all ready for sort of post-Belgium to do this big video I talked about in the summer about, is Max Verstappen a title outsider? And then obviously Belgium happened and that kind of put pay to that. But he was really starting to pick up even more as that season went on. I think he was really good in that first half of the year. And although he's still been good in the second half, I think his first half was definitely better than he has been in the second half, which is a little bit ridiculous given that he won in Brazil. He sort of almost got pole in Mexico. He was on the podium in the USA, podium again in Singapore. So it seems odd to say that he's not been as good in the second half, but that just shows you how good his first half is. And if you couple that with the second half of 2018, that run he was on, was it top 5 finishes at every race since something like Belgium last year, which I think just goes to show how far he's come. He wasn't involved. That first half of 2018, he was involved in accidents. It felt like all the time. I think contact at the opening 6 races, and that's polar opposite to what we've seen this season. So I think he's got to get a lot of credit for that. We already know, everybody already knows how good Max Verstappen is in terms of raw speed. Everybody knows this guy is, provided he gets the car, going to be a world champion. I think anybody who denies that needs to go and watch Max Verstappen a bit more because it's quite obvious he's got that raw talent. He will be a world champion one day. I don't think many will dispute that, but he just needed to work on that maturity, and I think he's absolutely nailed it this year. And that consistency as well, which is needed for a world championship. Going back to what I said about Lewis Hamilton, consistency is huge when wanting to win a world championship, and he's getting that now. And I've been properly impressed with him this year, especially with the start to the year. Again, like I say, a couple of moments not been brilliant, but that's kind of, you go back to Lewis Hamilton 2007 and 2008, the mistakes he was making, he wasn't perfect, and early in his career, and he's gone on to win 6 titles. I'm not saying Verstappen will win 6 titles. I'm not saying he won't win 6 titles, but he's getting there, and I've been really impressed with him this year. 3 wins as well, 2 pole positions, which were his first 2 of his career. So close to Mexico last year as well, wasn't he, with that snatch from him by Daniel Ricciardo. But I can't really say much about his raw pace because we all know what he's got. But what I've noticed this year is he has absolutely driven the wheels off that Red Bull. Now, I would have expected him coming into this season to beat Gasly. If Alban had been his teammate at the start of the season, I would expect him to beat Alban as well. But I don't think that Red Bull is as good of a car as perhaps the championship showing, if that makes sense. I think he is making the difference in that car, and he's absolutely, again, back to what I said about science, extracting the maximum from it. There is a pace in that car. He's finding every single bit of it and deserves so much credit for that because this is their first year with Honda, and they somehow, after all those problems with McLaren, have got it right, and it's working. And that is, I really do believe that if he continues, I was going to say continues this season, but that's a bit of a ridiculous statement given that we have one race left. But provided he continues to grow in the final race of the season and kind of over the winter and keeps that maturity and then goes into next year with a good car and is consistent and is challenging at the front, I think he's a title contender next year. I know it's very early days to be saying that because, Red Bull might rock up with a car that's absolutely shocking, or Honda might screw up on their engine or power unit, whichever. But I think he's got to be a title contender next season if he continues to grow. And I think the scary thing for Formula One neutrals, if you like, is that Lewis Hamilton is coming towards the end of his career, probably a few more years in him yet, but he's coming towards the end of his career. Max Verstappen already looks like championship material, and he's only going to get better. And that's quite terrifying. So people that say, Formula One's boring now because Lewis Hamilton wins all the time, it's going to be interesting to see how they feel if Max Verstappen starts to win all the time. David says, no rule change for 2020. That'll really make 2020 more competitive. That's so big, isn't it, this winter? This second half of the season. In fact, actually, no. If you ignore France, since Canada, because Canada was a brilliant race as well, but it was so tense at the front. I know what happened was devastating for a lot of people, but I would let's not get back into Canada. But I'd say since Canada, forgetting France, it's been absolutely brilliant this season and so competitive. And of course, over the winter, because there's no big rule changes, as David has said there in chat, evolution, not revolution, is what we're going to be talking about this winter. So the cars are going to look very similar to what we have now. The designs are going to be quite similar. They're just going to evolve what they have from this year, and that's going to bring the field even closer together, which is great for Red Bull, great for Ferrari, not so good for Mercedes. They're not going to want the field too close, and it's great as well for teams like McLaren who want to close that gap to the top three. Don't jump on me. I am not saying McLaren will be challenging for the top three. I'm just saying they might be able to close that gap. And if you think about, actually, totally random tangent, but if you think about how tight the midfield's been this year, how good is it going to be next year? My word, especially if Williams make gains and Haas manage to sort out their problems, that's going to be an epic fight, and this year's been brilliant. So Max Verstappen, 100% on that list for me. I know you can all only vote once in the poll, but if you could vote multiple times, I would say Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen deserve a vote on each of those. So yeah, I don't really have much to say on Max. I feel like I kind of talk him up quite a bit, and then the problem with Max Verstappen is I talk him up one week, and then the next week he does something silly, and then I go and slate him, and he's frustrating. But I do like the guy. He's a very good racing driver, multiple world champion, definitely if he gets the car right. Probably a Mercedes boy in the future, but that's a conversation for another day. Maybe Ferrari, who knows? But I think Max Verstappen definitely on that list for me, as is Charles Leclerc, and this is the one that I thought was going to be a bit of a controversial pick, but it appears not. A lot of people seem to think he should be up there with a mention. And the reason I've put him there is because although this season hasn't been perfect by a long way, there were the mistakes earlier in the year, of course. I'm going to pick out a couple of mistakes just off the top of my head, really. Baku putting it in the wall when he looked like he could have been on for pole position in that one, which may well have set him up for the win or challenging for the win. So Baku was a mistake. Obviously, qualifying in Monaco was a cock-up from the team, but then he was overly aggressive in the race, kind of because he had to be, but he was overly aggressive, and that ended in a crash. And then he made the mistake in Germany, which I don't want to slate him for too much because Lewis Hamilton put it in the wall in the same corner, and other drivers did as well. So he was kind of a victim of the conditions there. And obviously we know what happened last time out in Brazil. Not saying it's his fault. I know whose fault that was. I'm not blind. Let's not get back into that one. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, he's made his mistakes this year. It's not been perfect. But I think people seem to be forgetting, or it's certainly, they're not actually forgetting, but it's just how it feels, that this is his second full season in Formula One and his first with Ferrari. And the pressure he must be under at that team, it's insane. And I go back to that win at Monza, that sensational win at Monza. He fought so hard for that, and you could see what it meant to him on the podium at the end of it, and to everybody at Ferrari to win on home soil with their future star, if you like. And I just think the pressure he's under there is so huge that I can't think... There are, of course, drivers that could cope with it, but I can't think of many that would be able to cope with that pressure. And he's done such a good job this year with handling that. And not only that, he has... I mean, I don't want to say comfortably, but he's had Sebastian Vettel, the four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, who has been at Ferrari for a while now, a team that is effectively built around him. He's had him on the ropes this season, 19 points ahead of him, probably going to end up finishing ahead of him in the championship as well, unless something crazy happens in Abu Dhabi. That's a hell of an achievement for a guy in his second season in Formula One and his first with Ferrari. So I think we talk about Charles Leclerc, but he's one of those that we've talked about for quite a while. It's a bit like Verstappen and Norris in that respect. Certainly, probably more Verstappen in the sense that for a while before, I launched the channel June 2017. In August 2017, one of my first videos was on Charles Leclerc, this future star in GP2 or F2 that has got to get a seat in Formula 1 the following year, and he did, of course. But I feel like he's a driver that's been talked about a lot, so it feels like he's been around longer than he has, but he hasn't. It's his first season with Ferrari, his second in Formula 1, so huge credit to how he's handled that pressure and how he's managed to kind of take on Sebastian Vettel. And I know people are going to go in chat, Sebastian Vettel's past it and he needs to retire and he's no good. And Vettel's not past it. Any sportsman, any sports person, man, woman, whoever, is always going to decline as they get older. That's kind of a given. But I think Vettel still has a lot to give to Formula One and is still an exceptional driver. I don't think he's the best on the grid anymore. He probably isn't even in that top 3 now, but I think he's certainly well inside the top 5. Maybe he is in the top 3. I don't know. I'm trying to think what that top 3 would be now. I've kind of thrown myself a little bit on the Vettel talk. But anyway, I still think it's a hell of an achievement to be beating a 4-time world champion teammate, whether he's past it in some people's eyes or not. So, give him the credit for that. I know he's going to get a lot of stick, and I think the problem for Leclerc, in terms of people's perception of him, is that he exhaled twice near Max Verstappen this year in the wrong way, and people didn't like it. You know what I mean by people. I'm not attacking fan bases, but I'm just saying, how angry Verstappen fans can get when anybody wrongs Verstappen, and you know how angry Hamilton fans get when anybody wrongs him. But you know what I'm getting at. I think he gets a lot of stick, and a lot of it is unnecessary. Of course, he's not been perfect this year. I would never claim Charles Leclerc has been perfect this year, but 2 wins in his first season with Ferrari, 7 poles as well, more than anybody else, and I don't think that can be beaten now. So he's beaten the likes of Max Verstappen, who's brilliant over 1 lap, albeit in a Ferrari with a lot more power, of course. Let's remember that one, but still done it. Beaten Lewis Hamilton, who is probably the best over 1 lap. 7 poles. I think that's pretty special this year, and he's got to be up there in the vote. I don't know if he will. I don't think he's going to win it this year. He won it last year, of course, on the community poll, but we'll see. We'll see on Charles Leclerc. I think he's got world champion written all over him. There are little moments when I look at him and think maybe not, but I think that is just because he's still kind of learning and just improving. He's got a lot of room to grow. He's compared to Max Verstappen a lot. And I think that's because we're all quite excited by this Verstappen-Leclerc decade we could have coming up. But I don't think he can be compared to Max Verstappen. I'm trying to make my point as best I can without being too all over the place with it. But the point I'm making is that Max Verstappen's been in F1. He's still young, but he's been in F1 for about, 5 seasons now? Leclerc's in his second. So comparing him to, Verstappen would never do that. How can you say that Leclerc's got anything about him? Well, Leclerc's, he's got 3 years less experience in Formula 1 than Verstappen. So I think he needs to be cut a bit of slack in that way. But I will say as well, actually, he doesn't look out of place at the sharp end of the grid, does he? I don't know what you reckon in chat, but I don't think... I was concerned that he would maybe not to the extent that Gasly did, but that he would struggle in a way as the second driver at Ferrari this year. That team built around Vettel, first season under that pressure, might struggle a little bit, but he doesn't look out of place at the front of the grid. Looks perfectly comfortable at the sharp end of the grid and is willing to go wheel to wheel with the best on the grid. So I think that he's still got a long way to go. But I think he's a special talent, and I'm looking at them side by side on my notes, and just the idea of Max Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc is phenomenal. I'm so excited by that. Obviously, like I said, areas to work on in racecraft. Somebody chat there actually. Who is it? Benny J. Race is more important. Absolutely agree. 7 pole positions fantastic, but the points come in the race, so he needs to work on that, and I think he will. I think he's going to work on that and improve, and I think next year he'll be even better. But I wouldn't want to be Sebastian Vettel. I can't lie. I wouldn't want to be Sebastian Vettel right now in that team, because I think I'm not going to go as far as Autosport and start with this whole, alpha beta thing they're going on about in their article lately, which was a weird one to read today. But I think this year, I think I said this earlier in the year, this year has felt like the changing of the guard in Formula 1. I'm not saying next year Hamilton will suddenly be past it, or Vettel won't be able to challenge next year, but it just feels like the youngsters now, Leclerc and Verstappen, they're sort of making themselves known at the front. Carlos Sainz has improved. We've got the rookies in Lando Norris, George Russell, who, by the way, has been so good this year, I have to say. He kind of slides under the radar because he's always at the back of the grid in the Williams, but he has been so good this year. It just feels like we're heading into this next generation. Kind of the first time, obviously, since Schumacher was coming towards the end of his career. So I'm very excited for the future. But also, I always get quite sad at this anyway. You know, I know not everybody likes Lewis Hamilton, not everybody likes Sebastian Vettel, but I always feel quite... when we get to the end of eras, because you know we're witnessing history, and there you go. I've got a pick in a moment that I am going to read. I will read some chat messages in a moment. I don't know what I was going to say there. I will read some of your chat comments as well, and some of the stuff from over on Twitter too. But I have got another pick which I'm going to read later, which I think could surprise a few. I'm just going to quickly grab a drink. It's the problem with going solo. There's nobody to to waffle whilst I have a sip of my drink. But anyway, I read a couple of your comments on the picks. So the picks, if you're just tuning in, that I've gone for as probably, would I say, definites? Yeah, people that I think should be up there. Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen. Let me know what you think. I'll also do my weird pick in a moment, and I'll also... read some stuff from Twitter as promised, but Ben says those two are icons of the sports. I don't know if you're having a conversation with us or if you're talking about Seb and Hamilton. Daniel says I can't have a drink. Tough, I've just had a second one. I've been disappointed with Seb's season. He only really showed up after he won in Singapore, says David. I think Seb's probably very disappointed with his season, to be honest. I expected more. I really did. I thought Ferrari, I know winter testing and all that, blah, blah. We all fell for that trap for the third year in a row or whatever. But I just thought there'd be more. But it's not really worked, has it? Frustrated. Really frustrated. I would have loved to have seen him up there. Also, by the way, thank you very much to Louise Palmer for your contribution. It says, Carlos Defo, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your contribution there. You can support, of course, the F1 Word. All the links you need for that, you know, Patreon and all that are in the description down below. No pressure as always, though. Seb and Lewis, thank you, Ben. Mostly an F1 fan has a list here. Is this your top 10? It is indeed. Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Alban, Russell, Perez, hold that thought, Ricciardo and Vettel. That's not a bad top 10 at all. Definitely. Most people talk about 2021, but not 2020. Will be the best season since 2012 because top three teams are so close and there aren't many regs for next year. I'm optimistic for 2020, definitely. Kvyat was pretty good too, but he had some awful last races, says Arian. Kvyat's had a bit of a funny second half of the season, hasn't he? I did consider him, but I don't know if I was swayed because of that podium in Germany, but also the thing with Kvyat is Alban's got promoted to Red Bull, but I actually think Kvyat was the better of the two in that first half of the season. But since we've had the second half of the season, it's quite clear that Alban was the right call from a Red Bull point of view. Bottas, because his name is secretly Barrichello, says Necron. I did consider Bottas for a pick. I'm not going to lie. I did consider him for a pick, but as good as he's been this season versus previous seasons, he is still 73 points behind his teammate in, you would assume, identical cars. I don't think there's that much of a change between... I mean, the team is very much Hamilton's team. He is there to play second fiddle and be number two, but I don't think a 73-point gap, despite his improvements, warrants driver of the season. I feel really bad saying that because he's stepped up in qualifying. He's been so much more aggressive. He's just been the better driver than he was previously. So I did consider Bottas, but I don't think he can go on my list. Aaron Dixon, that's an interesting one. I'll read that and then I'm going to do my weird pick. I can't tell who the bigger surprise was, Bottas or McLaren. That's a good comment. That kind of comment interests me anyway, because both have been, as you've said there, big surprises this season. Bottas, I hadn't ripped Bottas off in the winter, but I didn't think he'd have been as good as he has been. I didn't expect that at all. And McLaren, again, I thought they were going to be right down there. I thought Norris's inexperience was going to cost them. I thought Sainz, new to the team, was going to need time to settle in, and it turned out he needed 3 races. and he ended up having a brilliant season. So, yeah, I think Oh, that's a good shout. Probably McLaren. I'd probably go with McLaren. But Bottas was a big surprise. He's had a better second half to the season as well than you normally see from Valtteri Bottas. But anyway, my weird pick, somebody's already said it. Dan also brought this one up when I asked for his picks. Hear me out. Please hear me out before you all shout at me and tell me I'm terrible at making decisions like this. Sergio Perez. Yeah. The start of the season wasn't anything spectacular. I don't think anybody would deny that. And he did have a difficult run between Monaco and Hungary, I think it was. Just double check on the thing. And by the thing, I mean Wikipedia. Yeah, he scored nothing between Monaco and Hungary, and it was looking like one of those years where Racing Point were really going to struggle. I also don't think that car's been that good. It's been okay. Not as good as I was expecting. Like I say, first half of the year was pretty poor for them. But certainly since the summer break, he's been massively consistent where the car hasn't been. 7 points finishes from the last 8 races, giving him 10 overall for this year. And he's also 10th in the championship despite the fact that car hasn't been brilliant. So I think he can't be driver of the season. There's just no way I would ever say that Sergio Perez is driver of the season because he's not been better than Verstappen. He's not been better than Leclerc. He's not been better than Hamilton, Sainz, possibly not even better than Alban, maybe even Ricciardo you could throw into there. But he's definitely one of those that deserves a mention in this stream because he's been better than I thought he had been. He's one of those. I went through how I did this was I wrote down the people that I thought, or the drivers that I thought had been really good this year, just off the top of my head. Then I went and kind of wrote a few bits down, and then I went and checked their stats. And Perez just jumped out at me in 10th place. I was kind of he wasn't here. He didn't make me jump or anything like that, but I just saw him in 10th place, and I was like, how did you end up there? Because you've not been that good. And then I started going through his stats and his average qualifying. You know, he's just missing out on being in the top 10 on average. He's 10.0 something. So he's kind of on average 10th place in qualifying. He's been consistent in the races. I was like, wow, he actually has been better than I thought. So I kind of wanted to give him that mention. And what's quite funny is that a lot of people seem to be saying the same thing. So I don't think he's been phenomenal. I don't think it's been his best season in Formula One, not by a long way, and I don't think anybody is going to call him driver of the season. But he's been good, and I think the way to put it is he deserves a nod. Perez has been out driving the car, says KJ. That's just it, isn't it? He's just been. I saw somebody write. I saw something the other week about this. Sergio Perez has battered Lance Stroll and no one's picking up on it. I like Lance Stroll. Everyone knows I like Lance Stroll and everyone knows I defend him way too much. But it's Lance Stroll. It's not a great surprise to see Sergio Perez beating Stroll. So I don't think we can really say... It's a bit like saying Verstappen should be driver of the season because he battered Gasly. Well, yeah, you kind of expected Verstappen to batter Gasly. It's not a great surprise. It'd be a bit like when Hamilton beats a teammate, nobody's going to be going, wow, what an achievement, because aside from probably 2007 when he didn't quite beat him, it was level points and whatnot. Yeah, I think you'll probably not know what I'm getting at. I have a weird head when it comes to Sergio Perez. I'm quite all over the place with him in terms of my views. Some seasons I think he's absolutely incredible. Another season I think he's all right. It's quite weird. He's one of those. He's just a very good midfield driver, one of the best out there, and yeah, I just felt that he needed a nod. Simple as that. Daniel Philpott says, give Perez a top seat. I'll let you argue with the team. With the teams over that one. But yeah, Sean, how could we talk about Haas boys' success this season while they had a car which dropped places after places during the race? I can't really talk about the Haas boys too much. I don't really know what to say, to be honest, on the Haas. Lads, I don't think they've been... I can't say it because I'm supposed to be anti-Grosjean to wind Dan up. But I don't think Grosjean and Magnussen have been absolutely dreadful. I just don't think they've had the race car to challenge this season at all. That's been their problem in qualifying. We've seen the pace. I mean, Grosjean in Brazil qualified really well and kept doing that. So, no. I kind of feel for the Haas boys a little bit this year because it's kind of the thing with Williams as well, with Russell and Kubica. It's quite hard to... I find it hard to judge Russell really on this season because, with all due respect to him, and as great as a guy as he is and as great as he used to be in Formula One, and as amazing as his comeback story is, Kubica has not been particularly brilliant this year, and despite picking up that point, of course, for the team. So I find it quite hard to kind of gauge where Russell is, and we're never going to have all the data from the team. So, yeah, but I've got a couple of community picks, which I thought I'd do, from over on Twitter. When I put this up earlier, I put a little tweet out just asking people to sort of make their case for some drivers and see, kind of gauge what the feeling was from people, if anybody I've not picked up on. One of the people that they've mentioned, you can probably see where this one is going. There are two. Lando Norris was a popular pick. No great surprise over on Twitter. I don't know anybody, really, that doesn't like Lando Norris. He's such a nice lad. He's got so much going for him. He's a very big talent, and he's got a lot of potential for the future. He was, if you watched him in Euro F3, he was incredible in that, absolutely phenomenal, and he kind of caught my eye. And I was sort of, somebody at work when I was working full time said to me, "Oh, there's this guy Lando Norris, keep an eye on him." And then I watched Euro F3 with him, and I was like, "Wow, that kid's incredible." And he's come in this year, and he's been a breath of fresh air, both sort of on track and off track. It's great to have a driver who isn't just this constant PR machine, who is just a bit of fun. So I think that's probably why a lot of people would put him at the top of their list. But there's no denying at all that he's had a very, very good rookie season. Again, maybe it's a conversation for another day, Rookie of the Year. I don't know if you could make him Rookie of the Year. Maybe Russell would get a shout in there as well. Alban's been pretty good too. But Lando Norris has been pretty decent this year, and I know he's been well beaten by Sainz, but Sainz has been in F1 a lot longer. Lando Norris has had all the bad luck. I think those stats there said 6 retirements this season. Not all his fault. Obviously, the one that springs to mind instantly is always that suspension or whatever melting in Canada. There's nothing you can do about that. And then, of course, where would he have been if he got across the line in Belgium without the engine failing 2 laps from the end, or as he crossed the line to start the final lap? I mean, that was devastating for him. He was on for such a good result, and he'd been brilliant all day. So massively good first season, bags of potential, but not driver of the season. He might be there for rookie of the season, but he's not driver of the season. And I'm kind of want to say the same for the other pick from over on Twitter, which is Alex Alban, who I do think has been, again, very, very good this year, certainly since joining Red Bull. I thought it was way too soon for him. I was wrong. It's as simple as that. I was adamant that it was way too soon for him, and Daniel Kvyat would have been the sensible way to go for the team if they weren't going to stick by Gasly, or if they couldn't or didn't want to promote Kvyat, then they would have to stick by Gasly. I thought first season in F1, he was an FE driver, a Formula E driver in December of 2018, and then he goes with very little testing or anything into this season. Does all right at Toro Rosso. I think Kvyat was beating him, but I think he did all right in that first half of the season, was pretty solid, and then he goes to Red Bull and he's just got to grips with that car so quickly. So huge credit to him. And I think he absolutely, again, probably it's Rookie of the Year, for me, is probably a harder pick than Driver of the Season. I don't know how you guys feel in chat, but I actually think Rookie of the Year is a really tough pick because Norris has been so good, Alban has been so good. It's not going to be Giovinazzi, but he's been all right, certainly in the second half of the season. And who didn't I mention there? George Russell, although we're comparing him to Kubica and we don't get all the data that Williams and that Mercedes are getting on him, by all accounts, he's been incredible this year as well for Williams, on sort of as incredible as you're ever going to be in a Williams. So I think that's a tougher pick than Driver of the Season, in my opinion. Dave the Fish says, forgot Gio was a rookie. I always forget Giovinazzi's a rookie. Bless him. But he's been good, hasn't he? He's not a bit of a rough old start to the year, old Gio, but I think he's been pretty solid over the last few races. So, yeah. Was he matching Kvyat? Edmund Young says matching Kvyat. I'm gonna do this. Are you ready for this? This is live maths. If you watch the Formula E channel the other week, Hazel did some incredible maths live. I don't quite know how she did it. I struggle with 1 and 1, and I always seem to end up with 4. Let's have a look at what they were doing. It's Alex Alban 3, 7. Actually, yeah, better than I thought he'd been in that first half of the year, to be fair to him. But no, Daniel Kvyat was still, it's that podium kind of skews things a little bit, but even prior to that podium, Kvyat was kind of, I think, matching. Do you know what? Who said it? Whoever said it in chat they were matching, I'm giving you that. I'm going to go matching because it's a cop-out and I can I can avoid having to do maths, 1 + 1 is 7 and all that. So, yeah, but I think a tough shout for Rookie of the Year. Doesn't Doesn't look like a tough shout in the... Just had a quick look at the vote. Doesn't look like a tough shout in driver of the season. Vote closes, don't forget, 15th of December, so plenty of time. If you are waiting to see who ends up third, I know some people have said that they want to wait and see because it could be who ends up third that swings it for them between Leclerc and Verstappen, but that's fine. So the vote's open to the 15th, so absolutely. Again, I'm going to get onto Twitter, read some more of your comments as well before I disappear. But there is one guy who couldn't make it along tonight because he's away, but I know he enjoys stuff like that, like this, and that is our very own Stuart, aka Chainbear F1. I asked him for his picks. 2 or 3 drivers that he thought deserve to be mentioned, and I don't think many of these, I think we've covered all of these, but I'm going to pop... It looks like a proper interview. It's genuinely not. I just basically copy and paste what he put me in DMs. He says, I think you can't ignore Leclerc, who's one of the few drivers who managed a quick promotion to a big team and not cracked. Not a perfect season, but he's got me very excited about him. Sainz has had a tremendous year. Luckily, McLaren are bouncing back and Sainz was able to capitalise on that and grabbed almost every point he could. And I may give the third to Verstappen. He did say prior to that he was really struggling because of a lack of surprises or consistency from other drivers. But he said, I may give the third to Verstappen because he's wrung everything out of that Red Bull this year and matured a lot on and off the track. Like Leclerc, he's laying the groundwork for the years ahead. I read the quote. I am so sorry I couldn't do the voice. He has such a unique, chilled out voice, whereas I'm just a panicked mess constantly and a bit shouty. But there you go. That's what Stuart wanted to say on the driver of the season. So again, we've covered Leclerc, we've covered Sainz, and we've covered Red Bull. I don't think there are many surprises in the picks tonight, apart from possibly Perez. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with what my picks are. I thought I'd been a bit wild with one of them, but you guys seem to be on board with what I've been saying. So I'm going to do this because I promised I would. I'm just going to go over to Twitter, which is why I had a little pause there. Oh, seamless as ever, Sean. Just to read a couple of your tweets out. Some of them have been on screen, so if I do repeat them, massive apologies for that one. But Lewis Bloomy Design, of course, the guy that does all the graphic work, all the graphic design for the channel. Thank you so much, mate, for your hard work this year. And I'm sorry that I've been a pain in the backside with some of my demands. Certainly some of the last minute ones and some of the stuff that I've not even used yet that was a bit of a pain. But thank you very much for your work, mate. This might be a bit out there, but I'd have a go at Checo in with a strong shout. He's significantly outperformed his teammate and has had some strong performances over the course of the season. It wasn't the fastest start, but over the latter half of the year, he's been a solid top 10 finisher. Good shout. F1 Fanatics Mike. Lewis Hamilton is the obvious one, but Carlos Sainz has been the most consistent driver out of the rest of the field for the whole season. Incredibly consistent point scorer, a podium to his name, multiple best of the rest finishes, and potentially finishing 6th in the World Drivers' Championship. Incredible. I did read that out, despite you having a pop at me over my Christmas logo. How dare you? I have my rules around Christmas. Not my number one, but I think Russell deserves some respect for absolutely destroying Kubica in terms of quali and race pace. That's from Kira Illuminati. I always get your name wrong. Daniel Philpott, obviously backing Grosjean. We know that one. Sawney G says, I really feel driver of the season has been Max Verstappen. Mention should go to Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris and Alex Alban. To be honest, for me, if Max was in that Ferrari, I think he would have done a lot better or a better job than either Seb or Charles. Carlos Sainz really has taken on lead driver of McLaren so well. Lando has been brilliant for such a young guy, but unlucky. Alex Alban, a few mistakes, but he has kept his own alongside a driver like Max. That's a good point on the Ferrari thing. Would Verstappen have won the title in that Ferrari? That's an interesting one. That's got me thinking. That's definitely got me thinking. Thank you for that. I like it when people make my brain hurt. Sainz for sure, says Eunice. Honourable mention to Lewis, Max, Lando and Charles. A lot of love for Carlos Sainz over on Twitter. Perez should be given a shout. I wasn't alone. I thought I was alone. That's from Sam. Thank you very much. I thought I was going mad. Justinaz says, Sainz, what a beast this season. Apologies if I butcher names as well. A couple more from over on Twitter. Ashley says, Alban, Lewis and Max drove the best, but Alban dealt with pressure unlike any of the others this season. I still think the pressure on Leclerc is worth a definite mention in there. Sainz or Max 100% for Logan. Ferraris and Mercs to a lesser extent too inconsistent. A couple more. I'm just trying to find the ones I didn't put on screen during this one. Paul Gardner says Carlos Sainz for Ernie. Sainz for Kyle. We put Rayans on there. That was 100% Sainz. Carlos, it's all Carlos Sainz, you know. Driver of the season, Sainz. Rookie of the season, Norris. Worst driver of the season, Grosjean. Ouch. Team of the season, McLaren. Worst team of the season, Williams. Renault Haas, that's from Will Crawford. Two more, very, very quickly. The Kingcognito. Always managed to put one of these in. Carlos Science. Very good. Carlos Sainz, of course. And one more. Let's see if we can pick one out that isn't a Carlos Sainz one. They are all Carlos Sainz. This is insane. Hamilton, Leclerc, Sainz in that order is what James has said. So there you go. That is what the F1 Word community say on Twitter, but obviously we're on YouTube at the moment, so do make your case for your driver in chat, and I will read some of those ones out. By the way, Dan did get in touch to give me his picks. He said the obvious, so I assume the obvious is your Sainz's, your Hamiltons, your Verstappen's, Leclerc, but he also put Perez on his list, just to let you know. Also, Dan wasn't able to make it tonight either, and Jonty as well. Knackered after work, bless him. Can't imagine. So wasn't able to make it. So that's why I'm waffling away. So if you've got a driver, you can just pop it in chat. That's absolutely fine. Or if you want to, you can make your case, and I'll read a couple of statements out and I'll give you a quick opinion, whether I agree with you or disagree with you. I never disagree with anyone. I'm generally quick drink. Right then. See what you guys are saying. So Vince has said Lewis. I've kind of made my case on Lewis, haven't I? I think the way he's won the championship this year, got to get a mention in there. Grosjean driver of the century, says Sylvester. Sylvester's been drinking. Unbelievable. Liam, good evening, mate. He says, for me, it's Max. He squeezed the best out of that car despite all the uncertainty in the team following Honda's first year and the turbulence in the second seat. I think he's, as I've already said on Max, I think he's definitely extracted everything from that car. No doubt about it. Driver of the year is Alban for Jeff. Steve Luss says Alonso. I'm not talking about Rich Energy. I'm going to avoid that one. Max has had the best race of the season by far, in my opinion. That's from Reiko. Lewis has been the most consistent. Carlos, really big shout as well. Really want to see him in a top team soon. Marco says Kimi still can drive great and proved he is not too old and not taking someone's place in the team. Good old Kimi. We love him, don't we, really? You can't not. Nico Hlkenberg has been underrated in the second half of the season. Still not the best, though. Let's have a look at Hlkenberg's results, actually. Definitely, to be fair, definite improvement. He was a little bit all over the place when he started the season. Points in Australia, nothing again till Canada, and then kind of a couple of races in the points, and then nothing, and then a race in the points, then so close to that bloody podium in Germany, for God's sake, man. Oh, it still makes me mad. Retired in Germany, 12th in Hungary. And then actually, apart from his disqualification in Japan and obviously that 15th in Brazil, he was in the points at every race. Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Mexico and USA, including 5th place in Italy. So definitely good point. Very good point on Hlkenberg. Not his best season, and he's not, as you said, not anywhere near the best driver, but certainly deserves a nod for his second half to the year. Steckleton, hello. Sainz beat midfielders just so impressively, nearly had as much points as Renault combined in his own. Yeah, very, very true. And had drives that some in the top three teams couldn't extract from themselves. I think a lot of love. Dave the Fish, Stoffel the Waffle, absolutely. But yeah, a lot of people, a lot of love for Carlos Sainz this year, and the vote appears to be going that way as well. But we'll not say any more on the vote because I will be doing a countdown around Boxing Day, which is the 26th of December. I don't know why it's Boxing Day in the UK. I should know, but I don't. It's just what we call it. Bloomy, of course, after all, we can't forget the true driver of the year, Kubica. I think he's getting a lot of stick, his old Bobbert, but I will always say that the fact he's even in Formula 1 again is a phenomenal achievement in itself. So, Liam just saying there that Ricciardo is probably his biggest disappointment. Ricciardo disappointed me as well. You are not alone on that one. I think a lot of people are disappointed with that one. Solomon, honestly think McLaren have been a pleasant surprise this year. Great performances, and I say the best teammate combo on the grid. Carlos is definitely my driver of the year, and Lando has been great. I feel like every stream for the last week or two, I've said this phrase, but I'm going to say it again. I'm chuffed to bits. So British for McLaren this year. It's great to see them challenge 140 points. Did not expect that at the start of the year. They've wiped the floor with Renault in the end. Of course, customer supply of Renault engines or Renault power units, so that's going to smart a bit for old Renault there. They're not going to be too happy with that one, but yeah, I think McLaren have been excellent this year, and I just hope that they can build on that next year and they don't fall away. I think Mercedes is an enigma. On the one hand, you can say Lewis is in a murk and Bottas just isn't delivering, but you can also say Bottas has done his job and it is Hamilton who has been class. That's from is it Levi Harris? Like I say on Bottas, I can't put him in driver of the season, but he's been far better, and you're spot on. I said this when we were talking, if you go back to post-Germany, there was a lot of talk about his future and Ocon maybe getting his seat. From all that talk, I honestly thought that Ocon was going to end up in that seat, but as it turned out, Bottas kept his seat, and rightly so. He's doing what he needs to do. Lewis has beaten him comfortably again, 73 points the gap, but he's there to pick up the second places and pick up the pieces when Lewis doesn't finish races, which doesn't ever seem to happen, but you know what I mean. He's there to pick up the pieces and help the teams of the constructors. He's doing that, so it's very difficult to say on Bottas. I feel a bit for him. I think if he went into a midfield team like a Renault, for example, I think he'd grab that team by the scruff of the neck and run with it, quite frankly. I think he would. He'd be brilliant leading a midfield team. I just think the top teams like Mercedes are always going to see him as a number 2 driver, and that might sound really harsh, but it's kind of what he's there to do for them. So no doubt, by the way, anybody who goes watch, if you're new to Formula One, go back and watch some previous races of Bottas in a Williams. Absolutely brilliant. You can see why so many rated him so highly. But yeah, going to make a case, Carlos isn't top 3 for driver of the year. The 2019 McLaren is probably closer to Red Bull than the midfield. Sainz got beat by Hlkenberg, who I don't rate either. That's from Jimmy Smith. That's a very, not controversial comment, but it's very different comment to what we've been having this night. So I'm glad. This night, that was tonight. Yeah, I'm glad we've got a bit of a differing opinion on Carlos Sainz. It's always good to see opinions. It's not close to Red Bull, is it? But it does feel closer to the Red Bull than the rest of the midfield. I think you've made a very good point there. But I still think the thing with the Hlkenberg thing is that it's, again, going back to, the psychological side, how comfortable was he at Renault, not knowing his future? But what it does pose is an interesting conversation, which again we could possibly have. There's going to be plenty of time over the next couple of months to have these conversations. I can assure you, I've got lots of ideas for December, but January, no idea. So lots of conversations can be had. But it'd be interesting to see how Sainz would fare if you put Ricciardo in that McLaren rather than, no offence to Lando Norris, but rather than a rookie, have somebody like Ricciardo in that car or a Perez. It'd be interesting to see how he'd do in that McLaren. So I don't necessarily agree, Jimmy Smith, but thank you for the comment. Genuinely, it's got me thinking, and it's something that maybe we can discuss over the course of the winter, because that's... Oh, no, look, people, stop being brain hurt. It doesn't take much, but yes, that's a very good point. Bottas has driven a lot better too. His performance is still inconsistent, but they are much better, says David. I'll take a few more. I don't want to go... I'm going to end up going over an hour because it's an F1 word hour, but not as long as I usually tend to. I'll answer that one in a moment, actually. Bottas should have been replaced, not for results, but they need to work on a driver in a post-Hamilton era. I think, Janus, that's probably Russell to them. I could see Russell in that car. I've got a feeling Hamilton's going to stick around. I thought he might go at the end of 2020, but I've got a feeling he's going to stick around for a couple more years at Mercedes. So maybe Russell in 2021. Yes, I'm starting driver market talk already. Mostly an F1 fan, who do you think has worsened the most over the last year? Do you mean compared to last season, or do you mean since the start of the season? Because if we're talking since the start of the season, I would probably say... I'm just having a look at a few bits now. Kimi Räikkönen's not had a brilliant second half of the year, has he? And I don't just mean in terms of results. I mean in terms of the fact that his teammate seems to have the measure of him qualifying at times as well. Definitely not the same Kimi from the start of the season. But if we're talking about versus last year, I'd probably say Hlkenberg. But again, as somebody else pointed out, second half of the year, he's been much better. Magnussen's fallen off, but the Haas is terrible. It's quite difficult in Formula 1 to kind of judge that because it's not a spec series, is it? So it's quite tough to say that driver's doing terribly when actually it could just be that the car's absolutely crap, like that Haas is during the races. So it's an intriguing one. But it's definitely one I'll be thinking about. So again, pose that to me in the winter and we can discuss that one a bit more. One more. Let's see what we've got. Bratman says, who did we pick for driver of the season? Carlos ? Vote is open. There is a link in the description to the poll. That poll is going to be open until the 15th of December, and then I'll do a video on the 26th of December-ish. It might be before or after, somewhere around it. It won't be Christmas Day, no way. I'll be drunk. But yeah, 26th of December, I'll do a video counting down the top 5, and then I'll kind of give my view as I go through as to whether I agree with you all or not, and then do my top 5 as well in the same video. So yes, McLaren confirms that they will use almond milk as fuel for next season. Oh dear, those milk memes. Why not, eh? One more. Who can we have? I've seen a couple of really good comments. And it's really tough to pick. Oh, a few people are... I'm not doing a drunk stream, no. Oh, do you know... I'm trying to keep it. There are a couple of questions that have come in or comments that have come in that I'm kind of like, I really want to answer that, but I'm kind of trying to stick to the whole driver of the season thing. But yeah. I think a few people saying there just on the whole McLaren being close to Red Bull thing, nobody said they're close to Red Bull, but they are closer to Red Bull, or it feels like they're close to Red Bull than a midfield. But I don't know if that's because... I don't think that's because McLaren are that phenomenal. They are far better than they have been in recent years. I think it is because teams like Renault have been so inconsistent this year. So yeah, I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to leave it. I know people want me to answer these questions that keep popping up, but I kind of... do you know what? I'll answer a couple. Do you know when you're going to be back on Chain Bear for the bingo? I don't, Dave the Fish. That is definitely a question for Stuart. Who is your most improved driver compared to 2018? Sean, memes aside, I'd probably go for Grosjean, says Liam. Really? He's crashed less. In terms of most improved driver since last year, I would probably... Well, based on how I sold him in the winter, probably Carlos Sainz, but I think... Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because, you know, Charles Leclerc's an obvious one, but that's because he's in a Ferrari, so that's difficult. I think Max Verstappen versus the first half of the year has improved massively, but... Do you know what, mate? I have no idea, and I'm going to ask you afterwards why you've picked Grosjean, because I'm properly interested as to why you think Grosjean has improved so much. One more, and a question on anything, one more. George Russell Howard, oh dear. Do you think Vettel did better than last year? That's from France. We'll leave it at that one, though, for the questions. But yeah, I think... No. I think Vettel was better last year. I am just very quickly, and I hate doing this live, but I'm very quickly just going to go over to the 2018 Wikipedia page. I know it doesn't tell the full story of the season, but results-wise, he won more races. He seemed more comfortable with the car, more podium finishes, was closer to Hamilton. So I think Vettel is probably worse this year than he was last year. But again, how much of that is because the car just wasn't there in the first half of the year? I mean, you look at last year, Ferrari, they were kind of there, and then they fell away. Whereas this year they were nowhere and then appeared. So it's quite difficult to say on that. But I would say Vettel probably. Disappointingly worse this year than last year, definitely. And I've got a question coming through Super Chat, so I will do that one. Is he Pizzy? Is he Peasy? I'll butcher it. I'm so sorry. You know, your name could be John Smith and I get it wrong. But thank you very much for the contribution. It says, did McLaren hold back Honda development? Absolutely. I think there were two big problems for Honda at McLaren. Number one was McLaren's expectations, and number two was Fernando Alonso. And I'm going to leave it at that one. I learned some things this week, so I don't want to say any more than that one. But yeah, I think... Yeah. I'm not going to say any more Alonso because I'll upset Spanish fans then. But we are going to leave it there, guys, because it's been over an hour now. So and I'm waffling away, and I could chat to you all night. It's great. But if you want to continue the conversation, you can do so over on Twitter. You can tweet me over there. I might not respond immediately, but I'll definitely have a read of some of your comments at F1 Word for that one. And I'll try and respond to some as well over the course of this week and into the weekend. Why not? It's the final week, so a bit more interaction, definitely. But I am going to be back on... What day are we on? It's Tuesday, so this isn't midweek, is it? It's not Wednesday. I've billed this as a midweek stream. It's not midweek, technically. Anyway, whatever. It is Tuesday, so I'll be back on Thursday with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview, the final one of the year. The final video I'm going to bombard you with a load of stats on. How terrible. I can't believe it's the last race of the season already. But yes, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview on Thursday. Then on Saturday, of course, will be the qualifying watch-along. I'm not going to say any more than that. There could be something extra, but definitely the qualifying watch-along. Sunday, obviously, race watch-along for Abu Dhabi and the race reaction as well. And provided everyone's fit and ready to go, that will be a bit of a bumper stream with all four of us on. Me, John T, Chain Bear and Dan all together for the final race reaction of the season. Fingers crossed, all being well. And of course, then the debrief for Abu Dhabi. And then it's into winter content. And my God, have I got a lot of stuff planned for December. So loads coming up over the channel. Make sure you do subscribe if you're new. And please do, before you disappear, 625 watching, just dropping down now. And before you disappear in chat, please do drop a like on the stream. It really helps the channel out this time of year and gives me a big boost as well, ready for a final week of F1, which I'm looking forward to, but I kind of don't want the end of this season to come. Don't forget to follow me, of course, on social media. All of the links you need for that are in the description down below, as well as that link to the Driver of the Season poll. I'm going to stop waffling now. These outros are too much. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.